Yes, we are. So, good morning, everyone. I think I've never been at a campsite where I'm camping and like a few hundred people are staring at me, but so be it. Lovely to be here.
Absolutely.
Hi, Edda.
Absolutely lovely to be here. Thank you for inviting us.
Yeah.
And I might explain a bit, in a bit more detail, perhaps, what it is that we do. The secret's out of the bag. In fact, we do turn CO2 into stone.
That's correct.
I'm from Carbfix. I guess we just continue.
Absolutely.
So basically, we've been thanking you guys for inviting us here. And I mentioned that we want to explain in more depth what it is that we do. Even though the cat is out of the bag, we turn CO2 into stone.
That's right. So we're very excited to be here, and as Edda said, I'm always actually excited to be in Iceland. I'm from Germany originally. So Climeworks is a company that is a Swiss company, but with a German subsidiary. So we take the CO2 out of the air, and Carbfix actually, and that's the great partnership we have here in Iceland with Carbfix. Carbfix is turning it into stone. That means it's gone forever. Almost forever, a few 100,000 years, that's good enough, I would say. And that's the negative emissions that we are planning in the future also to use to fight climate change. And that's very simple. So we want to talk to you about the plans, what we did already in Iceland, the big things we already did, and also the plans we'll have for the future.
Absolutely, and maybe just looking back, how it got started. Obviously, this doesn't happen overnight. So we in Carbfix, we've been working at it since roughly 2007. Formed a joint R&D project. It was actually just a pure R&D on paper back in those days. How could we imitate this process that we know nature has for millions of years used to permanently transform CO2 into stone? And actually, not many of us are aware of the fact that over 99% of all carbon that exists on Earth is already stored in the bedrock underneath us. We tend to not think about that carbon because the carbon that we can measure in the atmosphere, in the oceans, in the trees and plants and soil, it's somehow more visible. But actually, over 99% of all carbon is permanently stored in the rocks underneath us. So we set out together with international partners to develop a technology that would allow us to imitate and speed up this process. And the way we go about it, it's very simple. No rocket science, rock science. Sorry, it's a bad joke.
It's actually not too bad. It's all right. We're on a campsite.
So what we do, so we take the CO2 that's captured by Climeworks, somebody else, or we can even capture it ourselves. We dissolve it in water, create sparkling water. That is what we inject into specific formations, and then within just 2 years' time, it actually, wait and see, it turns into this. It's called Iceland spar. It's a very beautiful crystal. It's calcium and CO2 permanently mineralized.
You brought that for me?
Well, it's mine, but
and this is my tent, by the way.
Exactly. So we've been continuously injecting CO2 since 2014, did the first injections in 2012, and since 2017, been working with Climeworks.
That's right, yeah. So Climeworks was more or less on a similar track, just the above ground stuff. So I think when the two founders, Jan and Christoph, and the co-CEOs, they are still leading the company, when they started looking into direct air capture in 2009, probably most people were laughing at them and thinking, yeah, some crazy scientists. Well, whatever, that's never going to work. Well, look at where we are now. This is more or less becoming an industry. It has become industrial right here in Iceland. We have actually, European-wide, we have about 15 plants in operation, smaller ones. The biggest one is still in Iceland. We have more than a few 10,000 of operational man-hours of experience by now. So I would say this is a growing industry, but as always, there was always the challenge where to put it. And in the beginning, I don't think that any of our two founders were thinking that we would actually sell those negative emissions into an open and free market, a so-called voluntary market. That's what we do right now. At the time, there were concepts like power to X, so using CO2 to produce liquids and all sorts of things. And of course, there was the thought that those would be regulated markets, probably regulated by governments, but by now we know there are actually enough companies and individuals which are interested in this. So this cooperation with Carbfix is basically just a start. We have now the Orca plant right here in Hellisheide, which we commissioned last year. That was a great event, but we didn't stop there. We are now planning the next plant, and that's going to be a 10 times scale up from the Orca plant. So the Orca plant is taking about 4,000 tons of CO2 out of the air, and the next plant is going to take about 40,000 tons out of the air. And then we are not even stopping there with the commissioning of that plant early 2024. We are also planning already the next one for 2027, which is another 10-fold scale up. And that has to continue, and that is our contribution to climate change, our fight against climate change, which we are doing worldwide and with great partners like yourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, of course, it's a fact, and it's been a fact for a long time, but finally, people are sort of realizing that we do need to remove CO2 from the atmosphere. We do need to permanently put it away. But of course, perhaps first and foremost, we also have to stop emissions. So this is, of course, where what we are working on with respect to the direct air capture with Climeworks, but also Carbfix is very much focused on also assisting with reducing and stopping emissions, because we will have to take these types of technologies to the gigaton scale very quickly. And it's rather scary, actually, how quickly we'll have to get there. So we need exponential climate actions, meaning that we need more and more new projects every year, and they don't just sort of fall out of the sky. You have to create them, you have to develop them. We need the human capital, we need the partnerships across the value chain. We need, of course, collaboration with governments. The regulatory framework has to assist with this exponential scale-up, and obviously we need financing.
Absolutely, yeah. And I like the word exponential scale-up, by the way, and I think it's so important that the world in general is not just seeing this now as the fig leaf, so to say, or the excuse that there's now a technology that can actually solve our problems, so we can just continue what we are doing. Emissions have to be continued to be reduced, especially from fossil fuels. And even other measures for negative emissions. So there's direct air capture and storage, that's one thing. Other measures like, very simple, growing trees. There are several other measures. I'm not going into the details there right now, but they have to all happen, because otherwise we will just simply not get to this 1.5 degrees C goal that the IPCC is stating, and what has to be done to actually get there. So.
Yeah, absolutely, I fully agree. Thank God there are many solutions out there, not just ours. We need all of the solutions. We need to scale all of them. We're not competing with each other. We are working together. This is our joint problem that all of us have to solve. We just have one single atmosphere. So fully agree with that.
And you also mentioned funding earlier. So funding, of course, I can only thank our investors, which have allowed us about a month ago to close a funding round of about $650 million US. And that alone is testimony to what's actually happening in the world, right? There is a lot more awareness that this is required by governments, by corporations, and by individuals. And but we are looking very carefully at who we are working with, and also, for instance, who we are selling those negative emissions to, because we don't want to sell that to somebody who uses it just to continue their other, so to say, dirty business in the future.
Yeah, thanks for mentioning that, Dirk. Of course, it's extremely important that we do not support greenwashing. This has to be, the projects that we implement, they have to be transparent. There can be no double counting, and obviously not just putting a specific amount of money to a nice project while continuing with increasing emissions. So that is an extremely important factor for companies like ours, that we are transparent in that respect. And of course, great to see the increased finance being poured finally into climate solutions from private investors, but also through mechanisms. For example, within the EU and the US, we see a lot of incentive programs being launched there, and this, of course, is only going to help us in the challenging journey ahead.
Exactly. And I'm very much looking forward to continuing that journey worldwide, not only in Iceland, of course, it has to be worldwide. And I think this is a perfect kind of ending of our little chit-chat at our fantastic campsite. Yeah, it shows that we are not stopping, we are continuing. Climate change has to be mitigated and fought against, and we are certainly taking up that fight together.
Absolutely. There's no planet B. We have to conquer this challenge.
Exactly.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, everyone.